Alex sat in the waiting room, looking impatiently at the door of the maternity ward. He brought Michaela in that morning. When his wife had just started having contractions, the father-to-be was beside himself with worry, looking at the clock every now and then. Zarrow had long passed the noon position, but for some reason, he still didn't get the joyful news. Alex had long prepared a gift for his beloved wife on the occasion of them becoming parents. The caring husband had bought Michaela the earrings that she had dreamed of for a long time, and now he was clutching them in his hand. Finally, the door opened and the obstetrician stepped out. "You have twins, but the labor was tough. I'm very sorry, but we couldn't save your wife's life," the doctor said in an exhausted voice. He said something else too, gesticulating wildly, but the heartbroken man didn't hear anything else. He went outside, fell to his knees, and sobbed loudly. Having learned about Alex's misfortune, the villagers tried to help the unfortunate man, who was left all alone with 2 tiny babies. Some of them brought fresh milk and homemade pastries, like his neighbor Jenny. Or, like old Sarah, someone else came to babysit the kids for half a day or so. Alex had been a farmer for many years, and he was used to working in the fields from dusk till dawn, but he was also used to having Michaela help him with everything. The two of them had been friends since childhood. They sat together at school. They were always teased by kids who called them a bride and groom. Therefore, when they got older and got married, it didn't really surprise anyone. They built the farm from scratch and worked tirelessly to make it a success. And now that Alex was left all alone, everything fell out of his hands. It seemed to the man that life was now devoid of any meaning. Time went by, and despite the grief, Alex managed to find the strength in himself to pull himself together, because he was no longer responsible for just himself, but also for little Maya, who had the same blue eyes as her late mother, and little Nicholas, who couldn't sit still for a second like his father. 3 years flew by. The children grew by leaps and bounds. Their neighbor, Sarah, didn't have grandkids of her own, so she often babysat Maya and Nicholas and loved them like her own children. The elderly woman had a huge red cat named Bruno, which the kids simply adored. They loved to run their little fingers through his thick fur, which made the cat purr with pleasure. And sometimes they chased him around the house playing hide and seek. Thus they lived. Alex gradually returned to normal life, finally letting go of the day when Michaela died. Alex's broken heart had healed during this time, and one day, he brought a new woman into the house. First of all, Anna meticulously examined the house, noting to herself what needed to be changed and what she needed to get rid of. "Well, darling, it's definitely not a mansion. Especially that room over there with the tasteless color of the walls and old-fashioned curtains," the woman muttered, not even attempting to hide her disappointment. "Yeah, you're probably right, but it was Michaela's room. To be honest, I'd like to keep everything as it is." Alex answered uncertainly, as if embarrassed by the mention of his late wife. "I know you've been through a lot, but let's make a deal. No more talk about the past and no more sadness. You have a new life now, and you should only think about me now. Well, and your lovely children, of course," Anna added quickly, noticing that little Maya and Nicholas were looking at her with apprehension. For some reason, the kids didn't like their stepmother right away. The woman didn't like to cook, and chaos and desolation constantly reigned in her kitchen. Moreover, the woman treated them with outright coldness. Since Alex had become a well-off farmer by that time, his new wife spent his money left and right, buying all kinds of new clothes in the city all the time. Meanwhile, she completely forgot about her stepkids, who had long grown out of their clothes. According to the woman, that wasn't her problem. She believed that their father should have been the one to take care of his kids. Now, of course, when Alex was home, the cunning woman immediately transformed into a caring housewife who chirped merrily and fussed around the kitchen. In fact, only the kids knew what she was really like, but their opinions seemed to matter less and less to their dad, since he believed that they were simply jealous of his new wife. Their neighbor Sarah tried to point out to Alex that he was making a mistake marrying Anna. According to the old woman, his new wife wasn't nearly as good as Michaela. What do you want from her? So what if she's a city woman? She loves me. I can feel it. Or do you all want me to spend the rest of my life alone mourning over Michaela? Alex answered. The old woman only shook her head in response, realizing that the man was under the spell of the insidious woman. Time passed and made its own adjustments to the life of the farmer and his family. 5 years had now passed since Anna first came to their house, and things have gradually calmed down. The woman continued to disappear into the city for days on end, just as before, buying lots of expensive and unnecessary things, as well as going to beauty salons. At the same time, the kids were left to their own devices at home, and Alex worked on the farm. The family's life seemed to be very predictable until one fateful day. While Alex was out in the field, Maya and Nicholas overheard a bizarre conversation between their stepmother and someone on the phone.
Hi, honey. Yes, I'll be there tomorrow, my love. Please, be patient. Don't worry. My fool of a husband doesn't know anything. Okay, bye. I can't really talk right now. Love you, the stepmother said into the phone.
Now, although the kids were only 8 years old, they weren't stupid, and they immediately realized what was happening. Of course, they felt somewhat ashamed of having eavesdropped on their stepmother's conversation, so they hid in their room and tried to figure out what would be the right thing to do. At noon, when Anna sent the kids to bring dinner to their father, they decided to tell him everything they heard. That evening, Alex and his wife got into a huge fight. Anna wondered how the man managed to find out about her affair. Looking confused and rather pathetic, she packed her things and proudly left the house, slamming the door behind her. Finally, the children and Sarah exhaled with relief. Hopefully your dad will be more careful in choosing his women from now on, the old woman said, hugging the kids whom she considered her family. But the children's freedom didn't last long. A week after the awful stepmother left, she came back as if nothing had happened. Alex took the cheater back because he chose to believe that she was talking to her cousin that morning, whom she hadn't seen for many years. After that incident, the stepmother treated Maya and Nicholas even worse than before, having learned that they were the ones responsible for her fight with Alex. Ever since then, she made the kids do all the chores around the house, taking advantage of the fact that their father was never around. Now they got to see how awful and arrogant Anna truly was. The only salvation for the kids was their trips to the forest near the house, where they could enjoy the silence and the wonderful scenery, taking a break from the never-ending screaming and reproaches. One day, during one of those walks, Nicholas heard a strange sound. The noise vaguely resembled the muffled howl that the village dogs made when they were first put on a chain, being taught order and how to guard the yard. The boy picked up a stick, just in case, and carefully parted the bushes. There, he saw an adult wolf licking his paw, which was stuck in a trap.
Wow, how did you get here, you poor thing?
Nicholas whispered, not knowing what to do in that situation. Suddenly, to the great surprise of the children, the wolf wagged its tail and looked at them with a very trusting and kind look.
Oh, just a regular dog. It's only because of his gray color that he looks like a wolf,
Maya exhaled with relief.
We were told in school that wolves can't be trained and will never wag their tails when they meet a human.
The kids approached the animal fearlessly. The animal's eyes seemed to be full of unbearable pain and fear. Unclenching the tight spring of the trap was incredibly hard, but they weren't going to give up. Taking a stick and using it as a lever, the kids managed to slightly open the steel jaws of the infernal mechanism, and the animal quickly tried to run away, rejoicing in freedom. Unfortunately, though, as soon as he stepped on the injured paw, he fell to one side with a loud groan. Apparently, the paw was seriously injured. The kids broke spruce branches, laid the animal on them, and pulled him towards the village. The children knew that they couldn't show up at home with a wounded animal, so they decided to go to Sarah's house instead. Her husband was a forester and would definitely help them.
"We found a dog in the forest. His paw fell into a trap,"
Maya said seriously, seeing the old forester. "We'll come in then. Sarah will make some tea for you while I treat the wounds of the poor fella. But that's actually a real wolf. You two got lucky he doesn't seem to be aggressive. He must have been tamed by a human before." Sarah treated the kids to some delicious chicken soup, as well as some sweets and apples to take home. The forester decided to let the wounded predator stay at his house so that the kids could visit him whenever they wanted. They named the wolf Noah. He got better with each passing day, getting used to the new place, and only his affection and love for his rescuers remained unchanged. Meanwhile, Anna's attitude towards the children only worsened, and their father spent all his time working and didn't seem to be the least bit interested in what was happening at home. That day, Maya and Nicholas came home from school a little later than usual, and their drunk stepmother immediately started scolding them. The boy tried to explain what had happened, but it only made Anna angrier. The woman forced the children into the car and somehow managed to drive them to the far corner of the dense forest. "Let the wolves devour you, you ungrateful backstabbers! I'll teach you to respect me!" The distraught stepmother screamed, instead of any type of goodbye, as she disappeared into the dense thicket. Then came the silence. Now, although the kids tried to remember their way home, they had never been so far into the forest before. They wandered through the forest almost until the evening, but they just couldn't find the path leading to their village. Suddenly, they heard a crunching sound somewhere nearby, which was followed by a menacing growl. "Are those really wolves?" thought the boy, and his heart sank with fear. Meanwhile, the growling intensified and was now coming from different directions. It was a pack of wolves, which smelled easy prey and encircled the children. The predators came closer and closer. Nicholas picked up a stick and stepped forward, trying to hide his sister behind him, but the animals didn't have time to attack the kids. Something fast and strong, a wolf, interfered with the plans of the pack. He rushed at them, throwing them right and left. The predators wanted to regroup and attack this uninvited guest together, but at that moment, a rifle shot rang out. Knowing that this sound brought death and injury, the wolves chose to flee. "That's our Noah!" the girl exclaimed. Their faithful friend rushed to the children, wagging his tail and trying to lick the kids from head to toe, while the old forester came out from behind a tree, holding a gun in his hands. "How did you end up so far in the forest?" the man said, looking worried. "You should thank Noah. He sensed that something was wrong, and he rushed to save you." The kids hugged the forester and started crying. Having arrived home, they told him everything that had happened. Sarah's anger knew no bounds. She couldn't believe that someone would be so cruel to little kids. She left the children at the house and she went to go see Alex and Anna. "I just wanted to teach them a lesson." Anna tried to justify herself in front of her neighbor and Alex, who had just returned from work and he had learned what had happened. "If you don't care about the kids, then I think it's time for the police to get involved," the old woman screamed and walked away. Ever since then, Anna has never set foot in the house of Alex or his children. On top of that, the woman was now facing criminal charges for her cruel treatment of Maya and Nicholas. Meanwhile, it seemed as if a veil had fallen off Alex's eyes. He finally realized what a huge mistake he'd made having brought Anna into their home, and eventually started taking care of his kids the way he always should have. Maya and Nicholas remained welcome guests in the house of Sarah and her husband. They came by to visit the old couple and their gray friend every day, even though wolf blood was flowing in his veins.